It's not uncommon at all for, say, a married couple to have a disparity in age. Someone's older, someone's younger, and a lot of times people think we're going to retire at 65 because that's when our health care starts, or, my job's driving me crazy, so as soon as I get to 62, I'm not doing this thing anymore. Well, what does that mean for the younger spouse? Does that mean that we expect them to continue working just because they're younger? Do we expect them to keep working because they're the health care mule? Somebody's going to provide our coverage, honey. Sorry, it's you because you're younger, so I need you to go ahead and do that. And then there's a separate dynamic. What is it like for that spouse who's continuing to work, right? Is that okay for the younger spouse to endure, or are they going to get pulled into retirement out of, why am I still going with the daily grind where my best friend is at home? What's going on, Jess?
I'm not talking to you.
Why?
You know why.
I don't, but I have a feeling on this episode of Saturday State of Mind, I'm going to find out.
Because we're talking about how couples can avoid conflict in retirement. And I guess we're not retired yet, so we can't avoid the conflict.
Well, poor goat. Avoiding conflict, fellas, I don't know, get home late, hide in the garage. That's what I have found to be the best technique.
No, but it happens a lot in retirement. And I got to say something. You spend a lot of time with your spouse if you're both retired.
And if you're lucky,
yeah.
For some people, their spouse is their best friend. And for others, they're a roommate that you tolerate. Either way, you might have to spend a lot of time with these people. You got to figure out how to make it work, right? Opposites do attract. And so it's not uncommon for people to have a different idea of what they want retirement to look like, or what the budget's going to be, how they're going to spend their time, even when they're going to retire.
Right. So I think there's a lot of things that we talk about what goes into a proper financial plan. Well, a big part of that is making sure that the two spouses are on the same page, what you want, because sometimes there can be a different vision. And I think one thing we see a lot is one spouse that loves to travel and one spouse that just wants to spend time at home in their fuzzy slippers.
Yeah. I mean, I would even boil this down to a more high level thing. You tend to have somebody who's a spender and somebody who's the saver.
That's, another big point of contention there too.
And people can flip-flop on it because it might depend on the topic. Maybe somebody likes to lavish themselves more with travel. Maybe somebody else spends a little bit more freely when they go to Whole Foods. It doesn't have to be a static thing. People's identities change based on where they maybe are in an environment or whatever. But couples don't always see eye to eye on this. And absent some sort of a game plan, there can be a lot of conflict and butting heads, generally where the saver tries to make the spender feel a little bit guilty, or on the other hand, the spender is making the saver feel all sorts of nervous about the future.
Or certainly can get into where the spender stops telling the saver about how much they're spending, and that can lead to bigger problems down the road.
Where it starts too is with communication. So how often does somebody in the daily course of their lives say, you know what? We've been married for a long time, and I loved dinner tonight. It was fantastic. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I know we have a birthday party to go to. Hey, before we go to the birthday party, can we sit down and talk about the next, say, 10 or 20 years and what they're going to look like and big decisions that we have to make? I don't think people stop often enough and have this conversation, because it either just doesn't even occur to you to have, or there's not a lot of time to have it, or it's just such an overwhelming concept that you just think, you know what, we'll figure it out later. And then the next thing you know, you're in your 60s and it's right here on your doorstep, and you don't really have any kind of framework to have been on the same page with this person.
Right. Well, we say often too, no one wakes up one Saturday morning, puts on their fuzzy slippers and says, today I'm going to put my financial plan together. It just doesn't happen like that. Typically there's some type of catalyst, or it just has to be the timing is right that you're ready to do that. And if you can't have those conversations with your spouse on your own, or maybe you just don't even know where to start, that's why it's probably a good idea to go and see a financial professional.
So you just said something there that makes me want to go back a step. So we'll start talking again about the spender versus saver dynamic in a second, but you said timing. So it's not uncommon at all for, say, a married couple to have a disparity in age. Someone's older, someone's younger, and a lot of times people think, we're going to retire at 65 because that's when our health care starts, or, my job's driving me crazy, so as soon as I get to 62, I'm not doing this thing anymore. Well, what does that mean for the younger spouse? Does that mean that we expect them to continue working just because they're younger? Do we expect them to keep working because they're the health care mule? Right? Somebody's going to provide our coverage, honey. Sorry, it's you because you're younger, so I need you to go ahead and do that. And then there's a separate dynamic. What is it like for that spouse who's continuing to work, right? Their alarm goes off in the morning. They've got to go outside in the winter.
It's February
warm
morning.
up the car.
It's dark out.
Right?
The
It's
ice
pitch
is
black,
everywhere.
and, the other spouse is just comfortably underneath, the comforter, the warm, fuzzy blanket, sleeping away, right? Is that okay for the younger spouse to endure, or are they going to get pulled into retirement out of, jealousy is kind of the wrong word, but it's like, why am I still like going with the daily grind where my best friend is at home? So where I wanted to start a little bit in this conversation is talking about the timing. Are we going to retire at the same time, or are we going to have a disparity in our finish line dates?
Right, because people are all different ages when they get married. Especially, we see a lot of second marriages too, and that can have even more disparity sometimes. And I think it's okay if, the spouses are on the same page saying, hey, I worked for 25, 30 years. You work for 25, 30 years. I also think it's okay if they saying, when I retire, I want you to retire because I want to enjoy our retirement together. But you have to be on the same page.
Sure. And I think sometimes what you see too is, regardless of that age difference and regardless of what the intent is in terms of when you want to quit the day job, there's this prospect of, I love you, honey, but I don't know if I want to spend 24 hours a day with you. Like, we sleep like next to each other. That's cool. And we spend our evenings and our weekends together. But if we retire at the same time and we have this round the clock kind of deal, what does that look like? Especially if we have different interests, hobbies, things that we want to do with our day. I want to relax. You want to go on the fly and play pickleball. Like, we have to sometimes talk about, what do we expect once we're in closer proximity, like on a almost 24/7 basis?
It's funny, Mike, I actually get that question quite a lot. While I'm certainly not retired, I do work with my spouse. And so people often says, wow, I could never do that. I don't know how you live with this person, wake up, go to sleep, and then work with them all day long. I'm interested, do people ask you that question as often?
Not as often, no.
No. But, I say, it's a delight, and that's because we have a plan, and it's worked out really well. But you have to be able to have that communication in retirement too.
So now we get into, if we've reconciled the timing issues, the saver versus the spending dynamic. Obviously, when you have a difference of opinion, you have to seek compromise. Otherwise, one person is going to feel like they were either bullied or they're not being respected, and that's just not a good state for any relationship.
Right. You can't, get married without having ever discussed your finances and maybe your objectives in the future. And you can't retire, another major life milestone, again, without having that conversation. What do you want? What do I want? Not feel like you're getting, pushed into the corner.
Generally, what I like to do is with a couple is just go through some hypotheticals, right? So what if we just look at a budget where basically we're just covering the bills? How does that look? And you run a projection and you're trying to show that saver, okay, we have enough for this to do the basics. But now we're going to indulge the spender a little bit. What if we had 5, 10, 15 grand a year, whatever's going to float your boat, for a go-go budget, a bucket list bucket, to do all the things that I want to do with family or to like pursue new hobbies, whatever. And you actually start to show, well, can we sustain to spend a little bit more than maybe the saver would otherwise like? And you're looking to see if the projection still holds water, if it's still strong. Because if we're still strong, even in indulging the spender, we should be able to give that person permission to kind of pursue some of those items in a way that doesn't stress out the saver.
Sure. It's just, all proper planning for that. Just saying, hey, we're going to take another vacation we haven't talked about before could give a lot of people anxiety. It's like, hey, I'd like to have a little bit more control over my finances. And I'm not sure, like, you springing this on me is something we can afford. And then that leads to consternation and fighting in a marriage. So sitting down with a financial professional and talking about, hey, this is our goals here. We want to take 3 vacations a year, or let's put this money aside for fun money. And that's okay if she travels and maybe I stay at home, but at least it's accounted for and we know what we're giving ourselves permission to do.
Yeah, you're touching now on reconciling lifestyle differences. We've had a lot of conversations where somebody will come in and say, I want to travel, but so-and-so over here doesn't want to come along with, or I want to do more social things, join a local club, pursue some new hobbies, go play pickleball with other people in the neighborhood, but so-and-so doesn't want to do this. Or another example is that sometimes People don't want to retire. They like working. They like doing something. Their profession is their passion. So maybe they've cut down a little bit. They're working part-time, but you've got one person who's like, can you please just retire on me? And this other person saying, what you're doing, I respect it, but I want to be able to make my own choices, even if you think they're a little bit crazy. So sometimes we have to reconcile. It's not just what the money is doing and how we're using it, but the choices that we're making in terms of how we're filling our 9 to 5.
Any cornerstone of a decent relationship is based on communication. You have to be able to say that. You know, if you're getting ready to retire and say, great, the time is ours, but, you know, grandma volunteers to watch the grandkids like 4 days a week, then that wasn't really well communicated beforehand. And that's a fight that definitely could have been avoided.
I would say that if you're having conversations about money, certainly with a professional, and those conversations are just strictly about money and rate of return and tax maneuvers, I mean, that's great. But a really good financial planning relationship at times, from an outsider's perspective, almost sounds like therapy or marriage counseling. It's not always necessary, but one of the things a good planner is going to do is challenge these very concepts, because it really doesn't matter what your rate of return is or what your portfolio is doing if you're not settled on what that money is supposed to be doing in terms of impacting your life. And oftentimes we have to challenge people. Have you had these conversations? Oh, you have? Well, let's go ahead and prove it. How are we going to spend the money? When are we going to retire? Is it going to be okay if we have different pursuits and passions? And then sometimes you start to see the discomfort come out a little bit. And we're not trying to stoke a fire or get people going to blows with it. We really want our clients to live every day like it's Saturday. And that means we have to find reconciliation, the happy medium. We need to know that we're in a healthy headspace, because nothing that the money's doing is going to matter if we don't have some sort of a foundation or basis where we're on the same page, we're on the same path, we understand what we're trying to do, even if there's like a little slight difference in the approaches that we're going to take. And that's totally okay.
Mike, I got to tell you, I'm no longer mad at you. I forgive you. Maybe one day you'll figure out what you did. If you need help having that conversation with your spouse or don't know where to start, then contact a financial professional today. Like and subscribe for more.
Yes, dear.
If you liked this video and it helped you, watch another one. And don't forget to hit subscribe.